slight change again. We're about to hear about giving your kidney to somebody else in your family. And I met these two lovely people last night, and Tracy nearly won the quiz for us, which was great. So I welcome them both onto the stage to tell their story.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, David, and thank you to the NKF for having us here at the annual conference today. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Andy Jones, and this is my wonderful wife, Stacey, and we're here today to talk about the living donor process, how and why Stacey shared her spare, and what we went through during the transplantation journey. Now, I use this loosely, but I'm one of the fortunate ones in the CKD world because I have received a kidney transplant. As I say, Stacey donated in November 2022, and although we weren't a direct match, we did go through the NHS pair-pooled scheme. An interesting process for us, and I know Stacey will talk a lot more detail about that shortly. But we did think first, however, it'd be best if I just did 5 minutes, put a bit of context on my journey and how we got to the point of needing a transplant. So I'm going to briefly take you back to the 1980s. I was 4 years old. Yes, I'm only 43. I look a lot older. I was on a family canal boat holiday in the West Midlands, and one day I woke up with a massive bulge in the neck. My parents rushed me to Walsall General Hospital, not knowing what was going on, and it turned out I was suffering from severely high blood pressure. That was the start of my CKD journey. Now, the other thing that was noted during the tests and scans at the time came from one of the nurses who basically told my parents the scans of my kidneys were the worst she had ever seen in anybody, including deceased patients. Now, a bit of a scary time for the parents. I was only 4. I don't remember anything about it. Luckily for us all, though, medical technology has advanced since then. But for me, that was my diagnosis. I was put on blood pressure tablets, medication I still take 40 years later. Now, I am going to cut a very long story short and fast forward to September 2018, which was the sort of turning point in my life. I knew I wasn't well. I'd been diagnosed with CKD. Being a man, though, of course, I'm going to live forever. I had my head well and truly buried in the sand, my diet non-existent, my alcohol intake was far too high, my BMI was off the scale, and my only exercise was walking to the pub to play darts. So I went along to my usual nephrology appointment, knowing something wasn't right, and I was informed I was there and then I was in end-stage renal failure, and I needed to start dialysis pretty quickly or receive a transplant. Oh, I needed to lose a lot of weight as well. That said, I managed to stay off dialysis for over 3 years in total until October 2021 through a number of things. I changed my diet, I didn't drink as much alcohol, and I started exercising, mainly running. With the support of Stacey, we both did what was needed. We both lost a bit of weight, we both got healthier, ultimately to give me the best possible chance if a kidney transplant ever arrived. At this point, I would just like to quickly sidebar to say I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody in this room about my journey, especially about running, because I absolutely love it. I'm no Mo Farah, but I can do a mean 5K every so often. Please grab me at any point during the day, because actually talking about me is, for me, a coping mechanism and one of my favourite pastimes. But the point was, I stayed off dialysis longer. You know more than most. However, we also started testing. Once I got told we needed dialysis, transplants, etc., I started testing to get on the transplant list, as did Stacey, to become a donor. We did this during the COVID era as well. Now, COVID in itself played a massive part in our journey, which Stacey certainly will touch upon shortly. But hopefully, this is just giving you a brief idea of where my health was when we started all of this testing for both transplants and the pair-pool scheme. I should say the pair-pool scheme is fantastic. It's something I commonly, jokingly, and affectionately refer to as wife swap for kidneys. I'm now going to hand you over to Stacey, the most selfless person I know. She is my wonderful better half, my rock, my best friend, my wife, and I'm sure she'll be happy to go through why she shared her spare. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. The news that Andy's kidney function was rapidly deteriorating and he would be needing dialysis, possibly by Christmas of 2018, was like a bomb was dropped on our family. Andy didn't take the news well, as some men don't. We had 2 young daughters, aged 10 and 8 at the time, and both of them are like sponges. What's going on? Why is Dad sad? Why is Dad not here? What's wrong? What's going on? So as you can imagine, that was really tricky to deal with. Those few days after the news landed were really, really hard, trying to balance what was right, what to tell them. Now, we knew that a transplant was a consideration, so I attended a few appointments with Andy, gathered as much information as possible, and to be there as support. If Andy was able to sort out his weight, he could be put on the transplant list, so he started running and I started close behind. In early April 2019, he was deemed okay for the transplant. His BMI had come down, the running was working, the diet was working. At this appointment, we were actually given a phone number for the transplant coordinators at the Royal Liverpool Hospital. They are fantastic ladies. The idea of a living donor put a new spin on things. We'd always joked he only loved me for being the same blood type. But having this number in my hand, knowing the difference it could make to his life and our life for me and the girls, I made the choice and dialed that number, put myself forward to be considered as a living donor. I made the phone call on April the 8th, 2019, a day I remember really well because it's actually our wedding anniversary. I left my name, number and reason for calling on the answer machine and then messaged Andy straight away and said, this is what I've done. He had no idea that I was even going to do it. The coordinators called back, they made an appointment for the following Monday, and that got it all started. We were really excited, motivated. I was actively doing something rather than just prepping the food that was going to keep him a bit healthier. The first appointment was really long. It was literally digging into every single little detail of my life. My diet, my exercise, daily routines, medical history, family medical history, and then to top it off, a load of blood taken off me, which meant I ended up lying on a bed for a bit. This was for the blood matching and to check my general health, but I felt really happy I was doing something worthwhile. A few weeks later, we got the phone call, unknown number, no number, caller ID. My heart's racing, and I hear the voice down the phone, everything's really positive, we can carry on testing. That was such a huge relief. However, being a high school science teacher, it meant that I didn't really want my work to know what I was doing straight away in case they started to be funny with me. So the coordinators managed to get everything booked in for out of school hours or during the May half term that year. So I went, spent the entire day at the hospital. This was really daunting. Having only ever been in hospital before to give birth twice, both of which was in birth out the next day, I'd not spent any real time in a hospital. So spending the entire day there was really difficult to do. I took with me a book, school marking, and my crochet project at the time to keep me entertained through all the tests. And of course, a refillable water bottle to get my 2 litres a day in. I saw the coordinator at 9:30, so the day started early. And what happened next was a whistle-stop tour of almost every hospital department. I had bloods taken in one place, urine sample in another, an ECG in the cardiorespiratory department, chest x-ray and radiography before visiting the nuclear medicine department. And the TV screen, watching that with the radioactive tracer going through my body as a science teacher was just the best thing ever. And I even remember asking them, can we record this? There we go. Now, I left the hospital that day at about 5 p.m. with the letter saying that I was potentially radioactive, which again was amazing. But why is it when you spend a day waiting around that you're more exhausted than you would have been having a whole day in work? Early June comes that year, and we get really good news. My GFR was at 107. Don't want to rub it in, but yeah, it was that good. My right kidney was slightly better than my left kidney. And then all that was left to do was a CT scan. Now, during conversations at this time, we were told the tissue match wasn't brilliant, and that was when the paired exchange was introduced to us. It wasn't a decision we had to make at that point because they did say that Andy was doing really well and his kidney results were getting, well, not better, but they'd stabilised so that everything was within reason. CT scan was in June, and then later on we found out that that was all okay as well. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the live donor paired exchange scheme is a process where you find a better match for someone, for a recipient. So a donor and the recipient are put into the scheme and you're basically matched with better people, better combinations. Now, our first time in the scheme was October 2019. We had a meeting with a transplant consultant. He recommended that this would be the best thing for Andy as well, so we decided to go with it. And our first pairing happened in February 2020. I was absolutely ecstatic. This would be it. This in my head, this was it. It was all going to happen. Our chain consisted of 3 donors and 3 recipients, and it was going to go around in a circle. I ended up in the hospital the very next day, 13 bottles of blood taken, some of them sent off to different places across the UK in order for cross-matching to be done. The scheduled operation was for April 2020. That would be just 1 year after the initial phone call was made. Then COVID happened and the world stopped. Now, at this point, we were given a phone call to say that our chain was just paused, and as long as everybody stayed healthy during those uncertain times in the pandemic, it could be re-established when everything was back up and running again. So we did what we had to do. We followed all the rules. We continued daily exercise through those summer months. We continued running, and whilst I was getting stronger, Andy started to struggle. So we changed the plan. I would run, and he would cycle alongside me. For myself, and I think Andy too, it kept us really positive. The operation got rescheduled for the middle of September. Everyone in our chain was doing well, but post-COVID, we now had to completely isolate ourselves from the entire world for about 2 weeks before. I got signed off work. Our daughters ended up moving in with my parents. Food deliveries continued to be left on the doorstep. Families and friends were on standby to help us with pre- and post-operation help, and we had loads of Zoom calls carried on as well. Moving into a new house meant we had plenty of unpacking to do and organising, and at least we were together. The hard part here, for me as a mum, was not having our girls at home. I really didn't like it, and the house felt empty, even with 4 cats. After a week of isolating at this time, the call came from the transplant coordinators that my recipient was unable to participate due to other health conditions, and the operation would not be happening at this time. This was a massive blow. Andy went for a walk to process, and I sat there and cried. I was heartbroken. I called my parents to bring the girls home and called work to say I'd be back in tomorrow morning. Looking back, this wasn't the best thing for me to do. I really didn't process this disappointment properly, and although we were happy to have our girls home again, the build-up, the preparation, everything had been so big, it took us quite a few days to get back to a new normality and decide what to do next. We did go into the paired scheme again in November, and again was successfully matched. The scheduled operation was for February 2021. This time, we didn't tell anybody except really close immediate family. There was more anticipation, more anxiety, more heart racing, with another lockdown in January. That paused our operation in the February. One recipient in the chain, however, did get a transplant during this time from the transplant list. We got that phone call to say it fell through again. I felt sick. The anger was unreal, and again, I cried. That person, I felt they were being selfish. They'd just destroyed the possibility of 3 people getting a new lease of life just because they wanted it. But a little bit of time, I understood it was them. They were thinking about themselves, and it wasn't easy to accept. 2021 carried on, now with fewer hospital visits, wearing the mask, 2 meters apart, having to go on my own. We were paired for the 3rd time in April that year and scheduled for an operation in July. You had to isolate this time for a week before, so again, it was a week off work. Whilst isolating, I developed a cough. There was no infection, no phlegm, no nothing, just a cough, but I panicked. I was trying everything. I had my head over the hot water, I had cough mixtures galore, it was terrible. But we got to the hospital, mentioned the cough, they did extra bloods, I'm panicking. The hospital were like, there's no infection markers, you're absolutely fine. So they cannula fitted us both. One of us fainted, but I'll let you decide who that might have been. We stayed in, we got to sample the food. At this time, we believed that the operation would be happening. I was on a drip overnight, woke up at 6 a.m. for a wash, dressed for theatre, put on the lovely stockings, checked again, all okay. Arrow drawn on my left side, ready for them to take that out. The porters were sent for. 9 a.m. passes. Anxiety's there. Andy comes in. I cry again. There's a lot of me crying in this. Then the anaesthetist arrived. At this point, I hadn't met this anaesthetist. He didn't like the cough and made the choice not to operate on me. My heart shattered. Coordinator went straight away to the men's bay and got Andy, and the nurse went straight away and got me some tea and toast, because obviously nil by mouth overnight. Coordinator came back with news that the chain would be happening without us, and it did. My heart, my head, everything was spiralling. Andy was calm and kind, but I knew he was disappointed too. An hour and a half later, we are literally on the curb outside the hospital waiting for our lift home. That was really surreal. From being seemed like the most important person in the entire world to being dropped on the street was just heartbreaking. The guilt was unreal. Andy wasn't getting his kidney that day. I was broken. I was in shock. I couldn't cope. And my mental health took a massive hit. After some discussions with work and the coordinators, I actually had some counselling, which was done via an online system. It was really hard to accept that it wasn't my fault. I could not have changed what had happened. It just wasn't our time. This helped, and I was able to come to terms with these feelings, but it did take a long time, and it's now been revealed that I developed a tic caused by stress, and that was my cough. A little bit today as well. At this point, though, Andy's health has now started to deteriorate, and his function was now down to 5 or 6. And it took everything I had to stay positive like he was. He was quite motivational to me in that way. He ended up on PD in the October. I couldn't go to the training as being a school teacher. I obviously developed COVID and had to isolate at home for 10 days. So I used the time, I read the books, watched the videos, and was able to support him with his next step of the journey. The next year was quite tough. We didn't get paired in October, although we stayed on the pairing scheme. Same in February and the same in April. Every quarter, more worry, anticipation, and no phone call. That was until we got to August 2022. I remember the day well. It was glorious sunny, and we were at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, first day of the athletics. No caller ID appeared on the phone. Palpitations, sweaty heart, palms, heart racing. The coordinator tells us we've been matched. We want to operate by September. So this is now August. We're going to operate by September before we move into the new building. The emotions rolled back and I cried again. I was excited, nervous, scared, and the real prospect that that nervous cough would come back again and the operation would be cancelled again was massive. Bloods were fast-tracked because I hadn't had any for about 6 months. And then the appointments came thick and fast. More bloods, Andy's bloods, human tissue authority check, making sure I wasn't being coerced, consultant meetings, x-rays, ECGs. I didn't want to get my hopes up that maybe this time was our time, but anxiety didn't even have a chance to surface as there was so much to do. The operation didn't get cancelled. It just got delayed until November. We got to experience one of the first operations in the new building. Flat screen TV, ensuite, brilliant. No cough this time, bonus. No isolation time required, and everything went to plan. We went into hospital on Wednesday the 9th of November, and I again was made to feel like the most important person in the world. Food and drink brought as and when I wanted until 10 p.m. Andy could visit my room, I could visit his room. Again, the drip overnight, and this time no one fainted with cannulas. The arrow was drawn on my left side. It felt so real, so much better this time. I remember Andy sitting with me in the morning of the 10th of November. We played Uno whilst waiting for the anaesthetist and porters, and I think he let me win. He held me before I was taken on my theatre trolley, and I was absolutely terrified. I'd never had an operation before and was fully aware that there was still time for this not to happen. The bed didn't fit into the anaesthetic room, so straight into theatre I went. This actually made me laugh because it's a brand new hospital and the beds were too big. I went down to theatre that day with a wooden cross in my hand. And when I woke up, it was still there, that they'd put it back in my hand after the operation for me. I didn't want to see that cold, sterile theatre room, so I just kept my eyes closed. And again, the hospital staff were amazing that they accommodated that for me. The mask went on. I don't remember a thing until I woke up a few hours later. Relief washed over me when the nurse said the operation had gone well and the kidney had been transported safely. I didn't realise before, but that was the start of the hardest part, the recovery. The roller coaster the last 4 years was the starting point of it all, and now the operation had gone well. My kidney was successfully transplanted into my recipient. Andy's operation went well, although there was a few hiccups, but his new kidney was working well as well. I did push and was a textbook recovery. Out of bed on the Friday, walking around on the Saturday, home on the Sunday. Again, hindsight is a fine thing. I pushed too fast to go home as it was our daughter's birthday on the Monday and I needed to be home for her birthday. I was sent home with the biggest box of paracetamol I've ever seen and instructions to rest, drink plenty of fluid and see the local dressing clinic in 2, 5 and 7 days after leaving the hospital. Oh, please bear in mind that we are based in Cheshire on the Wirral and our hospital was in Liverpool, so getting over to Liverpool on those days wasn't a possibility for me. Recovery at home was so much better. It was more comfortable. I had my dressings checked. Everything was fine, but it was difficult to get my medical notes over from Liverpool to Cheshire quickly enough, and therefore wasn't able to go to those dressing clinics. And I ended up having to do 3 visits to walk-in centres in that first week of being home. First few nights, I didn't even go upstairs. Leaving hospital, I hadn't been seen by a physiotherapist, and I couldn't do stairs, so I ended up sleeping on the sofa, and my parents had to stay with us to support me and our girls. Andy came home about a week later, which was a lovely surprise for the girls when they got home from school. However, I know that he thought me coming home first meant I would be able to look after him when he got there, and I couldn't. The tiredness was unreal. The World Cup was on? World Cup was on. I don't think I watched a full match. I was asleep pretty much the whole time, and nanny naps are now my favourite pastime. By January 2023, I was back in work as a teacher, so that's about 6 to 8 weeks after the operation. Work had been really good. I was allowed a phased return and didn't go back to full-time until April that year. I am glad at this point that I did start listening to my body and what was needed. I'd get home from work and fall asleep, get up, have tea, go back to bed and sleep through the night. My tiredness became a worry to myself and Andy at this point, so I spoke to my doctor. This is 6 months post-operation and no one's checked my kidney at this point. So my GP did tests, came back and my kidney function had improved since leaving the hospital 6 months earlier. She now believed that I was perimenopausal, so let's just throw that into the equation now too. Now this is something I am slowly learning to live with, and I hope you are as well. Through everything though, my life has improved from that point. Andy's life has obviously improved, which is making everything so much easier that I can see what I did was worth doing. I was able to participate in the British Transplant Games in Coventry in 2023, and I won silver in the donor badminton, something I am immensely proud of. Thank you. I'm back to exercising now. I volunteer with Girl Guiding, and this year I've actually become a kidney buddy to help other people that are thinking of becoming a living donor. It has been a really long, hard journey, and it is still going on now. But the choice I made back in 2029 to share my spare was definitely a choice I would make again. It is a roller coaster, and I couldn't have made that choice without the support and love of my family and friends, and Andy as well. If anyone wants to chat later, feel free. I'll be here. Thank you.